Italian Foreign Minister Angelino Alfano says Europe will take steps to cut down the number of migrants reaching Libya in order to stem the flow into Italy. Alfano was speaking in Rome following a conference on migration attended by foreign ministers of African nations. Investing in African countries to create job opportunities as well as tightening Libya's borders is what EU nations hope will slow down the numbers of people making the journey across the Mediterranean. Italy is the main point of arrival for African migrants to European shores. Most of the boats are sent out from Libya.
For us to reach the target, to cut down the number of people that come into Europe, we need to cut down the number of those who reach Libya. Not only that, but the control of Libya's northern border, the sea, and also a greater control of its southern borders to diminish the number of migrants and refugees that enter Libya. This is the crucial point that I would like to emphasize.
Well, for more on this, Elena Casas joins me now live from Brussels. Elena, of course, this is not the first time we're hearing of plans to invest in Africa in order to stem the flow of migrants into Europe. But at this point, are plans becoming clearer in terms of a timeline rather, from Europe?
Well, the European Commission's plan in the short term is to allocate another 46 million euros in funding to Libya to projects like trying to train its coast guard to help it detect smuggling boats in Libyan waters before they reach international waters. The longer-term plan, though, for 2018 is rather more ambitious. The European Commission is discussing setting up a sort of joint coast guard, a joint sea rescue centre in Libya, which it wants other northern African countries, including Tunisia, Algeria and Egypt, to participate in. So the idea is that they would all agree to police their own coastlines, that they would all share intelligence, and that the EU would then contribute funding to this joint sea rescue centre. The problems with that, of course, are many and varied. Does Libya have the organisational capability, given that it's still at war, to set up such a sea rescue centre? Will Tunisia, Algeria and Egypt all agree to cooperate? And indeed, is it ethical, given that NGOs say that the Libyan Coast Guard, despite having been trained and funded by the EU, is itself cooperating with smuggling groups and contributing to the migrants' suffering?
Well, of course, and as you point out there, the focus seems to be on tightening Libya's borders. But as we know, where there's a will, there's a way. It's likely that migrants might look for alternative routes into Europe. What are they saying on that note?
Well, the idea is to get all these northern African countries to cooperate. So Tunisia, Algeria and Egypt, along with Libya, have all been invited to an EU-organised summit on this issue in Tunis on the 24th of July. And Morocco, of course, already has its own separate deal with the European Union, under which it receives significant funding in exchange for trying to prevent migrants from undertaking the dangerous voyage across the Mediterranean. The only reason that the central Mediterranean route has become so busy in the last couple of years, of course, or the principal reason, is that the eastern Mediterranean route into Europe through Greece via Turkey was effectively shut down when the EU struck a similar deal with Turkey in March of 2016. So they're hoping, the European Union is hoping, that by trying to keep migrants in North Africa and indeed prevent them from travelling to their own countries north into Libya to begin with, they'll be able to reduce the problem.
And of course, some of the investment, as we know, will go to creating job opportunities. But not all migrants are economic migrants, really. Some of them are running away from serious conflict. Will some of these cases be treated as special?
Well, the European Commission does still, under international law, have the obligation, European countries have the obligation to assess people for their eligibility for refugee status once they arrive in Europe, and Italy registers people once they arrive from Libya and indeed processes their asylum claims. The problem arrives when those people are deemed eligible for asylum in Italy because other European countries aren't taking as many of them as they're supposed to under a European Union commitment which all countries have signed up to. Those people who are eligible for refugee status because they have fled conflict are supposed to be redistributed from Italy to other European countries, but many countries, including all of Eastern Europe really, are refusing to take the quotas of refugees that the EU wants to assign to them. So the European Commissioner on Migration, Dimitris Avramopoulos, today said that he is optimistic that the numbers of refugees being taken by other countries is improving, but Italy still feels there's a lack of solidarity from other EU countries.
Thank you so much, Elena Casas, joining us live there from Brussels.